Curtis is our next guest here on the Concerted Commanders Radio Show and AUN Television, right here from Orlando, Florida, the NFRA Presidential Preference Convention. And welcome to the Concerted Commander Radio Show. We ran into each other in Missouri, where Pastor Steve is from and hails from, about a month and a half ago at Lindell Crime Bureau Summit, and my first chance to hear about you. And I dreamed, could I get a chance to let our network know about you? And your story is you only helped architect and design the software that runs our voting machines.
Yes, I wrote the prototype. Well, I'm not sure which software or which company what, but it's all basically the same stuff.
Yeah.
But I wrote the prototype for the electronic voting machines, including touchscreens and scanning. And as part of that, the request by the guy who wanted the software was that there be a piece of code in there that allows someone who knows how to come in and basically choose whoever's going to win whatever race.
Whoa! Wait a minute.
Very simple to do. As a programmer, there's nothing to it. So I wrote it up. My assumption is that they are trying to keep electronic voting machines from ever being used by showing that it's so easy to hack.
So how many years ago was that?
That was in 2000.
You're the original architect of, and we've had a plethora. We always used to use the machines with the little levers, and we used paper ballots in America for 200 years.
Right.
And so you are the architect, the software designer of the software that these new machines use now, and this millennium.
I wrote the prototype. I'm not sure what they use now.
Yeah.
No one gets to actually see that anymore.
Yeah.
But essentially what it shows is that from the very beginning, hacking was not only possible, it was required as part of the initial deliverable. And so, we handed that in. I said, this is what you need to do to make sure no one ever uses it. Head of the company says, we're actually planning on using these in Palm Beach. So I didn't think you'd be stupid enough to let a computer judge their elections for them.
Right.
Because then you essentially have what we have in Russia. You have basically someone telling you who won, and you get to smile and believe it's true.
Yeah.
And so, but that's, I testified before Congress, 2004, took a polygraph. The person who requested it was a guy named Tom Feeney, who was Speaker of the Florida House.
Yeah.
Jeb Bush's running mate. Challenged him to take a polygraph. He couldn't get around to it, of course. But, so that's all out there. Been that way for 20 years, and it just keeps getting worse. And Republicans were sleeping at the switch for the first, 19 of those years. They didn't wake up until 2020 and started saying, something doesn't look right here.
Well, Pastor Steve and I were talking a couple hours ago. All these government agencies and major corporations have been hacked these last years. I mean, I can't think of hardly anything that hasn't been hacked, and American people know that. And you're saying, well, the original software design enabled that.
Well, it enabled an internal hack. There are external hacks too.
You're right.
Because you can hack it at many levels. On a computer, if the computer is too complex for people to actually see what's going on. And that's if we're allowed to investigate it. As you know, with the voting machines, you're not allowed to investigate anything.
Yeah.
Can't see the software, can't see the hardware.
Proprietary stuff.
Yeah.
So you can't go in there and audit, although we the people paid for it,
right.
Because this is proprietary.
It's your election, except it's not.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense. So what we have, and hacking isn't something that's just came around. In fact, all of the components in computers basically come from China.
Yes.
In 2015, if you look up a particular thing, CIA, Bloomberg, Google CIA, Bloomberg, Amazon. Back in 2015, Amazon was going to buy this little company, and they wanted to make sure that they weren't wasting any money on components. So they actually went through the computer looking to make sure their components were right, and they found a little small cooling capacitor in there that wasn't in the original design. So they went in and investigated it, and sure enough, it was actually collecting and transmitting data back and forth to China. And this was in 2015.
Whoa.
Apple Computer was working with this particular company at the time, and they canceled all their contracts with them. But the fact is that's still there, and that was 2015. Since then, there are systems, there are chips that are small enough that they can be embedded actually inside the fiber layer. So you don't have to like have a mask or anything. You'd have to melt the system down to find it. Just to find it.
I mean, we're used to finding modems in the motherboards and stuff and say, aha,
Right.
it's got internet accessibility. Not supposed to.
Right.
But you're saying this stuff is you'll never find it.
Right. And modems don't have to be modems. Back when I was coding, we actually sent our networking through your house wiring. So anything that plugs in actually is connected. You actually have a network.
Wow.
There's also 1,000 other protocols, 1,000 other ways to do it. You can do it through cell towers, you can do it through Bluetooth. Anything that says it's air-gapped, and that's why your computers are not hackable, either they don't understand or they're lying to you. Because nothing's been air-gapped for 25 years.
Yeah. Before the interview, I was visiting with Clint, and I'm just catching all this. And I told him, I said, growing up, from the first time I ever voted, I never questioned that there was a ballot problem. Anybody could, you just voted. And I told him, you hope you voted for the right person, but it never even crossed my mind that there was any fraud or hack. Now I feel like, I need to wake up here. There's something I was missing. What do you think, now that you're working on this, where's this going for the next, of course everybody's interested in the presidential election. Want to give us a clue or what's happening?
If you're interested in a particular candidate, and that candidate doesn't happen to be the mainstream selection, then you better work on getting your election so you can actually count the ballots as cast before you do anything else. Because otherwise, that particular person probably does not have a prayer. And it's easy to move a few ballots anywhere you want to. Even before machines, people would come in with bags of ballots and stuff, but they would get caught. Now, there's no way to catch you, there's no way to do it, there's no way to secure it. You've got to go to a hand-counted, hand-marked paper ballot that is counted on camera so that you can see every ballot cast and every ballot counted. I have a little system over there. You might want to do a little video or add it in or something so they can show it. It's faster than the machines, it's cheaper than the machines, and it's trustworthy because you don't have to trust anybody. You can actually count every race, every ballot cast, everything you want to do. And obviously you're not going to count every race, but you will count the races that seem suspect. And everybody knows where they are, right? I mean, the ones that, the guy is ahead by 5 points and then he loses.
Yeah.
You know where those races are.
Wow.
So essentially that's what you got to do, or your democracy gone. You basically have Russia.
I also heard you mention in our conversation the 2016 election and the 2020 election. You were comparing the two in hacking, honesty. So any comments on that now that we're visiting with other people?
Both elections were equally bad. Elections have been bad since I wrote that code back in 2000.
Wow.
Prior to that, we had exit polling. Exit polling worked every time.
Okay.
Almost identical. In fact, we still use it in foreign countries to make sure they're not cheating elections. But here, because they don't work anymore, and they don't work because the machines are playing with the totals, but since they don't work here, we decided we're not going to use exit polling here. There you go.
Okay.
All I have to do is that. In 2016, everybody was complaining that it was one of the worst elections ever. The Russians were hacking.
Yes.
Everybody was hacking. Well, frankly, guys, everybody should be hacking everywhere on machines like these, because why wouldn't you? You can't get caught. You can pick the guy you want, or at least put your thumb on the space a little bit. You don't have to contact him. But 2016 was the worst election ever, right? 2020, however, you have it's the best election in the entire universe.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the two?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing, except for the guy who won. Since the guy who won is now promoted by the mainstream over the guy they don't like, it must be a great election. Well, it's no greater than the one before it, and neither one of them's worth a squat.
Well, and I think our viewers should know, what political party have you been with for a few years as you grew up?
I'm a Democrat.
That's what I thought.
I am a Democrat.
Who believes in truth.
Who believes in truth. Because it doesn't matter who gets elected. It will eventually work itself out. What we have to do is make sure that the person gets elected is elected by the people and not selected by some government agency or by some group of people that can play with it or by the country that hacks last. Because he who hacks last gets to win. If I have China hacking at 9 o'clock and Russia hacking at 9:30, whoever Russia selects wins. China doesn't. The person who always loses is the American voter, because their vote's never going to count.
How can our viewers, listeners, learn more about this? Because I think it's very eye-opening, and it's an issue that we just have to tackle. We have no choice. But how can they get in touch with you, Clint?
Well, you can Google me, or you can go handcountusa.com. And that will give you links for how this is done. Because, you get a lot of excuses on why we can't hand count. It takes too many people, too hard to do, too many errors. None of that's true, which we've proven. We've actually run samples to show that that's true. But not only that, most other countries that want legitimate elections actually go to hand count. So like Germany. Germany, I've chatted with them in 2004, right after the congressional thing, and they were concerned because their elections started coming out funny too. Why wouldn't they, right? Because they went to machines. And so Germany actually got rid of their machines and hand counted ever since. Germany has a larger population than the state of Florida, has a larger city in Berlin that they count, which is larger than LA or New York. And essentially they hand count their ballots by hand, and they have been doing it for years, and it's very easy to do.
And when do the returns come in and get officialized? Do they have to wait 2 weeks?
No, they usually don't even have to wait till midnight. So
Isn't it just amazing?
it's just because it's not that hard to do. If you have a lot of voters, then you throw a little more people at it. In Germany and all these other countries generally, what they have to get the actual counters, because people are lazy, but essentially it's like the jury system, and they put a summons out, and you get to come in, and you do your hand count for an hour or two, and essentially you go home and you're done. But in Germany, they actually make it so that if you do the election summons, you get out of the jury summons. So they actually get more volunteers for the elections than they actually need, because who wants to sit on a jury?
So I want to make sure I understand what your opinion is for the next presidential election. Where are we going? What's going to, ballot-wise, voting-wise? What do you think is going to happen? Where are we going with this?
You need to get a hand count paper ballot that can be counted on camera. There's a system. I will send a link to it so you can add everything. Okay. So I will send that link, or they can go to Hand Count USA. It's on there that will show the system. And if we do that, then you will have an election that everybody can trust. If you don't do that, I'm assuming that someone will select who your leaders are going to be, and you will either like that or you will do something about it. So
we're being warned.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty plain.
That's about where it is. So, and I'm guessing if you are a Trumper, you better do it quickly, because Trump doesn't actually seem to be favored by the establishment. So, so since if they can't throw him in jail, they can certainly flip enough votes that he can't win.
Yeah, wow.
It's a whole lot easier. I'm surprised they're going to all the trouble the other thing. So.
Wow, very eye-opening.
Clint, but there are a few counties, the states like Iowa, I think maybe in Arkansas, Missouri, some counties are going to hand count the ballots, just like what you're recommending. So we want, especially our Republican Assembly friends nationwide, to get on board. So one more time, give us that website as we finish up.
Handcountusa.com.
Well, thank you for coming on the Pacific Commando Radio Show.
Really.
It's just been so informative.
Thank you, sir.
And God bless, Clint. Thank you.
Let's get her done.